Hello everybody and welcome back to Words of Wisdom, and today we're talking about something that might hit maybe a little bit too close to home for some of you, and I want to talk today about building a life you don't need to escape from. So if you've ever had that feeling where you're living for a Friday and you dread the Sunday night, or you felt that sinking stomach feeling at 7 a.m. on a Monday, or you've been constantly scrolling holiday websites or house listings thinking, if I could just move there, if I could just get that job, meet that person, I'd finally be happy, then this episode is for you. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. So many people hate the life they're living. They don't like their job, the commute, the paycheck to paycheck stress, but they never actually do anything to change it. They complain, they vent to their friends, they fantasize about starting a business, moving country, leaving the job, leaving the relationship, and then they go back to the exact same Monday. And today I want to show you why that happens, why changing jobs, partners, locations without changing you never works, and how to become the artist of your own life. So your day-to-day is something you live in, not something you're always trying to escape from.
Hey, welcome to Wow Words of Wisdom. This is the podcast where we talk about all things mindset, all things confidence and taking action, even when it feels scary. I'm Sharon McCaffrey, and if there's one thing I know for sure, it's this. Your mindset shapes everything. The way you think, the way you show up, the way you go after what you really want, and it all starts in your head. So if you've ever felt stuck, doubted yourself, or wondered if you're really capable of more, you're in the right place. Each week, let's break through those mental blocks, shift your perspective, and start making things happen.
Okay, so let's get clear, on this phrase, because it's not, a perfect life where nothing bad ever happens, or a life where, you never feel stressed or overwhelmed, or a fantasy life where you sit in Bali, sipping green juice and money magically appears in your bank account. Although I have been to Bali and I've sipped the green juice, and I have to say it was definitely worth it. A life you don't need to escape from means you like who you are when you wake up in the morning. You feel a sense of agency. You're just not reacting, you're creating. Your work, your relationships, your routines are aligned enough with your values that you're not consistently fantasizing about being someone else, or somewhere else. You still have tough days, you still have problems, but you're no longer living in that constant state of get me out of here or anywhere but here. And that's the state so many people live in. They're stuck in jobs they don't enjoy, they're working paycheck to paycheck, telling themselves it's just for now, but they're saying that for years. One of the things that I want to talk about is this perfect job stroke perfect life trap that we can fall into, and we'll say things like, if I just find the perfect job or the perfect partner or the perfect city, then I'll finally feel how I want to feel. So what happens? You hit a point where you can't take any more, and you think, I'll change careers, I'll start the business, I'll move city, I'll leave the relationship. And at the start it feels amazing. And this is what we call uninformed optimism. It's the honeymoon stage of any change. And you've probably felt this, like the new job, this is it, this is going to be so different, or the new business idea, this is going to change everything, or the new relationship when it's all butterflies, this one is nothing like the last. And then, reality starts to roll in. It's harder than you thought. You feel out of your depth. It's not instantly comfortable. Maybe the money feels tight. You miss the familiarity of the old thing, even though you didn't like it. And this is then when you come into, and I've spoken about this before in the emotional cycle of change, but this is the valley of despair. Stage one always of the emotional cycle of change is uninformed optimism. Yeah, this is going to be amazing. Stage two is that informed pessimism. Oh, this is harder than I expected. The valley of despair, which is stage three, is maybe I can't do this. Maybe I've made a mistake. And stage four then is the informed optimism. I'm getting the hang of it now, which leads on then to stage five, which is, success and fulfillment. I'm so glad I stuck it out. But where do you think most people quit? Most people actually quit right in the valley at the lowest point. And because they quit there, they never prove to themselves that they can make it to the other side. So what they do is they repeat that cycle again. They start something new, they feel the high, they hit the valley, they quit, they feel like a failure, they start again. Whether that's jobs, businesses, relationships, it's the same loop. It's just different packaging. And the problem isn't always the job or the partner or the city. The problem is there was no real vision. It was just anything but this. There was no strategy. It was just like, oh, we're going on vibes, or no willingness to walk through the valley of despair and keep going to get out the other end. One thing I talk about, a lot, I talk about it a lot in my coaching sessions stuff too. You are the artist of your life. And I want you to picture your life like as a huge blank canvas. Every choice you make is a brushstroke. The job you stay in or leave, the people you keep around you, the habits you repeat every single day, the boundaries you set or don't set. But here's what most people do. They hand the paintbrush over to their parents' opinions, to their partner's comfort zone, to their friends' fears, to random people on Instagram. Things like, oh, don't start a business, it's too risky. You're lucky to have that job, just stay. Who do you think you are to want more? And slowly, the canvas stops looking like you. And you end up living in a life designed by people who wouldn't actually want to live the life you secretly dreamed about. And, just remember that, your goals are different to theirs. So, but they're mapping out your life and drawing it out for you, but it's not the life that they want, but you're prepared to live that. If you wouldn't swap lives with them, why are you letting them design yours? Opinions are cheap. Everyone has an opinion. It doesn't make it fact. Facts look like people who've built what you want to build. Mentors, coaches, expanders who've walked the path the journey you want to take. Data on what actually works versus what people assume will work. So building a life you don't need to escape from starts with this decision. I'm taking my paintbrush back. You can love people and still not allow them to direct your life. You can respect their perspective and still choose your own path. I have, I always say we can't escape our families, whether we love them or loathe them. But and I do love my family, but they don't share the same visions and goals that I do. So, as much as they will give me an opinion, I suppose I'm smart enough now not to listen to that opinion. And I will acknowledge what they say, but I still carry on doing my brush strokes on my canvas because it's my life I want to design. I don't want anyone else designing it for me. I was actually just thinking about this yesterday, and it's so mad. When it comes to a holiday and stuff, you will, for most of us, if you're going on a holiday, in the summertime, and you have it already booked, you probably have spent loads of time planning it, and you've probably, you know exactly where you're going, where you're staying, how long you're going for the dates, all that sort of stuff. But for a lot of people, you would plan your holidays better than you plan your life. And as I said, if you're going on holiday, you would never just rock up to the airport, with no idea where you're going or no idea what you're packing for or no clue how long you're staying, and just hope there's a plane going somewhere nice. And I remember, this sounds great, but I remember years, I was 19 years old, and me and my best friend done a holiday like that. Back then, I don't even know if you can do it now, but you could book a holiday, but you didn't know where the destination was. You knew it was just somewhere in the sun, but it was way, way cheaper, and we were 19, so we didn't have a lot of money. And we ended up in Corfu, it was terrible where we ended up. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think about that now, there is no way I would do that, but a lot of us do that with our lives. So when you think about your holiday, what would you actually do? You decide the destination, you'd pick the dates, you'd check the cost, you'd save for it, you'd choose the hotel or Airbnb, you'd think about who you're going with, you'd plan what you would want to do when you get there, and you would spend a lot of time doing this. But in life, most people are just wandering around the airport of life with no boarding pass, no destination, and then wondering why they feel lost. So let's flip this. The first thing I want you to do is pick your life destination. Ask yourself, what do I want my life to actually look like in 3 to 5 years? Okay. How do I want my average Tuesday, for argument's sake, to feel? What time am I waking up at? What work am I doing? Who am I spending time with? What kind of money am I making? How does my health feel? Get specific. Not I want to be happy or I just want to feel secure. That's like saying I want to go somewhere hot. Okay, but where? The next thing then I want you to do is check the cost, because every destination has a cost. And that might be skills that you need to learn. habits that you need to build or stop doing, boundaries you need to set, conversations you need to have, comfort zones you need to leave. And I don't mean it in a scary way, but I mean it like in a growing up, honest way. If you want more freedom, more income, more meaning in life, there will be a season where you pay the price in effort, focus, and consistency. I always say if you want to make a withdrawal, you have to make a deposit. And then the third thing you want to do is make a plan, not a wish. You wouldn't say, I'd love to go to Italy one day and then never look at flights, never check the prices, never book anything, and then be shocked that you're still at home next summer. But we do that with our dreams. So instead, pick a realistic time frame. Let's say in the next 12 months, I want my career to look like this. And break it down. What needs to happen each quarter? What needs to happen each month? What needs to happen each week? This isn't about hustle, culture, burnout. It's about being intentional. So how do you actually start building that life? Because this is the bit that turns this episode like from inspiration into transformation. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is decide your North Star. What is the North Star? So I use North Star in my business as the North Star is the star that guides travelers home. So I use it as my guide of where I'm going. So I want you to think some little prompts and stuff that you can think about. Like if nothing was off the table. So like money, location, other people's opinions. What would you want your life to look like in 5 years? What does your ideal day actually look like from morning to night? What are you tired of tolerating? What are you no longer available for? That gives you your North Star. You don't need every detail figured out. You just need a direction. I done something the other day. It was something I picked up from a podcast I was listening to about a week ago. What I actually done was I recorded, it's about a 2-minute recording of what my day looks like in the future. So in the next 3 to 5 years, what a typical day will look like, where I'm living, what my mornings look like, the time that I get up. And I recorded that, and now I'm starting to play it to myself every day, because it's about that repetition where I'm rewiring my mind to actually believe that it's happening now. The next thing you want to think about is choosing your identity, and I'm going to talk about that a lot in my upcoming workshop. But before the strategy, you need an identity. So ask, who do I need to be to create that life? What does she believe about herself? How does she talk to herself on a bad day? How does she handle the valley of despair? Because building a life you don't need to escape from requires you to expect the valley, normalize the valley, walk through the valley. You stop making every side wobble mean this isn't working, I should quit, and start making it mean this is the part where most people quit. If I keep going, I get to join the 5% who didn't give up. And I always say, if you want more than the average person, then you just have to be prepared to do more than the average person. So in my head, I go like, provided I don't give up, I'll eventually get to where I want to get. And then the next thing you want to do is set simple, repeatable actions. Some of them will be boring, but the life you want isn't built in one dramatic leap. It's built in tiny, unsexy, just repeated actions. And I'll give you a bit of an example, like maybe 20 to 30 minutes a day it's learning a new skill for your business or career. Maybe it's one money conversation a week, budgeting, saving, investing, one boundary you enforce that protects your energy, or maybe it's one networking or opportunity creating action, like maybe reaching out, applying for something, posting, sharing. But ask yourself daily, what's one action my future self would thank me for today? What's one thing I can stop doing that keeps me stuck? Where am I trying to escape instead of design? This is where alignment comes in. When you get clear on your destination, act in line with it regularly, and refuse to hand your paintbrush to other people, you start to feel different now, before the big external changes even happen. So stop waiting for permission. One of the biggest reasons, people stay stuck in lives they want to escape from is they're waiting for permission. Permission from a boss to go part-time or change roles. Permission from a partner to take a risk. Permission from society to want more. Permission from their own past to move on. No one is going to knock on your door and say, hi, I notice you're deeply unfulfilled. Here's your, personalized blueprint or permission slip to live the life you actually want. There's nobody coming to save you. You are the only person that can decide, I'm done living a life that I constantly want to escape from. I'm choosing to build, one I genuinely want to be present in. That doesn't mean you burn everything down overnight. It means you start moving with intention. You make a plan, you build skills, you get support, and you get honest with yourself. If you take nothing else from this episode, take this. You are the artist of your life. Your life is your canvas. Stop giving the paintbrush to people who aren't living the kind of life you want. Don't fall for the perfect job, perfect life myth. The problem is rarely there's something wrong with me, and it's not always this job is the worst thing ever. The problem is often no clear vision, no strategy, no willingness to walk through the valley of despair. And then plan your life like you plan a holiday. Decide the destination, check the cost, make a plan, book the flights, commit somewhere in your calendar, your bank account, and your daily habits. And then align your identity and your actions. Ask yourself, who do I need to be? What's one thing I can do today that that version of me would do? So before we finish up, I'm going to give you a little bit of practical homework. Before you go back into your day, I want you to do these 3 things. The first thing is grab a journal and answer these 4 questions. If nothing was off the table, what would I want my life to look like in 3 to 5 years? What am I most desperate to escape from right now? What am I tolerating that I know I've outgrown? And the 4th thing is, if I keep living the way I'm living now for the next 5 years, where does that actually take me? And then the second thing I want you to do is write down one brave decision you're ready to make this month. It might be starting that course. It might be booking a call with a mentor. It might be having a hard conversation. It could be starting a side business. It could be saying no to something that drains you. But I want you to choose your one daily action for the next 30 days. Something small and repeatable that moves you towards the life you actually want to live. And if you're listening to this and you are so done with living a life that you want to escape from, this is exactly the work I do with my clients. If you want support to get clear on your North Star, build a strategy and actually follow through, you can tap the top link in the description. That will take you into my latest guide, or you can follow me on Instagram. You'll get lots of tips and stuff there. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that you've got some direction from this. I'm looking forward to seeing you working towards that North Star.